Every survivor has a story. Every story needs a voice. Every voice can save a life. This is Breaking the Silence. Episode 3, The Invisible Chains.
Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The man who was supposed to stay just for one night had become a fixture in my home, a dark, looming presence that altered everything: how I spoke, how I moved, how I parented my daughter. He never contributed financially. Not once. Despite his grand claims of marketing expertise and business connections, he lived entirely off my dwindling resources. I was trying to build my business while supporting not just my daughter and myself, but also this grown man who consumed without giving anything in return. I remember standing in the grocery store, calculator in hand, trying to figure out how to stretch my money to cover food for 3 people instead of 2, how to accommodate his expensive tastes when I was barely staying afloat. All while he waited in the car I had purchased, that I was making payments on, scrolling through his phone without a care in the world. But the financial strain, as difficult as it was, wasn't the worst part. It was the isolation that was truly suffocating. My friends started to notice something was wrong. One friend in particular, a woman who had been by my side through everything, kept trying to check on me. Her calls became less frequent, though, and I couldn't understand why until she finally told me. He had been contacting her behind my back. "He's telling me strange things about you," she said during one rare phone conversation when he wasn't around. "Things that don't sound like the person I know." My blood ran cold. He was going through my phone when I wasn't looking. He was reaching out to my friends, telling them lies about me, poisoning the few relationships I had left. But even more disturbing were the stories he started telling me. Stories about my own life that never happened. "This lady told me you always had issues with your mom," he would say casually over dinner. "Which lady?" I would ask, confused. He would mention someone I barely knew, or sometimes someone I had never met. "She told me you always thought highly of yourself," he would continue, "that you always said you wanted a nanny because you didn't want to take care of your own house." These were bizarre fabrications, things I had never said or thought. But he delivered them with such confidence, such specific detail, that sometimes I would find myself questioning my own memories. Had I said these things? Had I forgotten? But the most chilling fabrication came one evening, as we sat in the living room. My daughter was already in bed, and he was staring at me with that unsettling intensity that had become so familiar. "I know what you did to pay for your studies," he said abruptly. I looked up from the book I was reading, puzzled. "What are you talking about?" "When you were studying in that other city," he continued, his voice eerily calm, "I know how you paid for it." "I worked part-time and had a student loan," I replied, growing uneasy. He shook his head slowly, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "No, you were a prostitute." The word hung in the air between us like something physical, something toxic. I stared at him in complete shock. That's insane," I finally managed to say. "That never happened." "You'll never admit it," he said with absolute certainty, "because you've suppressed it, but your spirit told me the truth." I started to argue, to defend myself against this outrageous lie, but the look in his eyes stopped me. There was something there, a challenge, an eagerness, that made me realize he wanted me to fight back. He was trying to provoke a reaction, trying to drag me into defending myself against something so absurd it should have been immediately dismissed. So instead, I just turned back to my book, my hands trembling slightly as I tried to focus on the words that now blurred before my eyes. But he wouldn't let it go. Day after day, he would bring it up again. "I know what you did," he would say casually over breakfast, or while I was cooking dinner, or as I was getting ready for bed. "Your spirit confessed everything." It was as if he was trying to plant this false memory in my mind through sheer repetition, as if he could rewrite my own history by saying something often enough and with enough conviction. And sometimes, in my darkest, most exhausted moments, I would find myself wondering if there was something I had forgotten, some trauma buried so deep that I couldn't access it. That's how powerful his manipulation had become. That's how thoroughly he was dismantling my grip on reality. Meanwhile, my daughter was withdrawing more and more. This bright, vibrant child who had once filled our home with laughter was becoming quiet, watchful. She moved through the house like a shadow, trying to avoid his attention. But she couldn't always escape it. One afternoon, I had to run a quick errand. My niece and nephew were visiting, and I decided to take them to the store with me. I gave my daughter a simple assignment to complete while I was gone, some small household task that I can't even remember now. "We won't be long," I promised, kissing the top of her head. I was true to my word. We were gone maybe 20 minutes, 30 at most. But when I returned, the atmosphere in the house had changed. There was a heaviness in the air, a tension that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I found my daughter in her room, sitting very still on the edge of her bed. She looked up when I entered, and that's when I saw it. An angry red scratch under her eye, dangerously close to damaging her vision. "What happened?" I gasped, kneeling before her and gently tilting her face toward the light. "He hit me," she said simply, "on my chest so hard I couldn't breathe, and then," she gestured to the wound beneath her eye. Ice filled my veins, pure, crystalline rage like I had never known before, but alongside it, something else, paralyzing fear. I wanted to confront him. I wanted to throw him out of my house, call the police, protect my child as any mother should. But the fear he had installed in me over those months was so complete, so overwhelming, that I found myself frozen, unable to act on the fury burning inside me. I cleaned my daughter's wound with trembling hands, whispering reassurances that felt hollow even as they left my lips. And when she looked at me with those wise, knowing eyes, I saw something that broke my heart. She understood. Somehow, at her tender age, she understood my fear, my paralysis. She didn't ask why I wasn't confronting him. She didn't demand the protection that was her right. She simply leaned against me for a moment, drawing comfort from the only safety I could offer. My presence, my love, my silent promise that somehow, someday, we would escape this nightmare. That night, I lay awake on the mattress that had replaced my bed, listening to his breathing beside me, my mind racing. The scratch under my daughter's eye would heal, I told myself. But what about the next time? What would he do to her next time I left them alone? I needed to get her away from him, to put her somewhere safe, beyond his reach. But how? Where could she go that he wouldn't follow? What could I do that wouldn't provoke him into something even worse? I had no answers that night, only questions, only fear, only the growing realization that I was trapped in a situation that was escalating beyond my control. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined in my darkest moments, was that this was just the beginning. That the violence would escalate. That the day would come when I would be covering my daughter's black eye with makeup before sending her to school, too terrified of the consequences to seek help. I didn't know that soon I would be making the most heartbreaking choice of my life, sending my precious child away to keep her safe from the monster I had invited into our home.